Welcome to The Explainer. You've probably heard this phrase a million times. I'm spiritual but not religious. But what does it actually mean? And what's the argument against it? Today, we're going to dive deep into the divide between personal faith and organized religion, all based on our source material.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll pin down what spiritual but not religious, or SBNR for short, really is. Then, we'll look at the case against it, flip the coin and explore the case for religion, and then get into the potential dangers our source highlights. And finally, we'll see why this whole debate is such a big deal.
So let's start at the beginning. What are we really talking about when someone uses this phrase?
At its heart, it's about believing there's more to life than just the material world. You know, a spiritual dimension. But doing so without signing up for a specific, organized religion.
The source we're looking at points to a few key trademarks. It's about ditching formal rules and doctrines for a more personalized, kind of build-your-own spirituality. And, this often stems from a real disillusionment with religious institutions, seeing them as old-fashioned, out of touch, or maybe even corrupt.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The source argues that underneath a lot of this is a belief system called moralistic therapeutic deism. I know, it's a total mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually pretty straightforward.
Basically, it boils down to a God who's kind of like a divine butler or a cosmic therapist. He's there when you need him to solve a problem or make you feel better, but he doesn't really ask for much in return, like deep worship or a real relationship. In this view, the main point of life isn't about seeking truth or holiness. It's about being happy and feeling good about yourself.
Okay, so how does the source material push back against this mindset? Well, it gets right to a huge question, a question about truth itself.
The whole argument really hinges on this. Is truth just a personal preference, or is it an objective reality? The SBNR approach tends to treat spirituality like it's all subjective. It's about what feels right to you. But the source comes back with a really strong counterpoint. If a religion can actually be shown to be true, then our personal feelings about it don't really change that fact, do they?
So from that critique, the source starts to build a positive case for religion. The idea isn't that religion is some kind of burden, but that it's actually the framework you need for any real spiritual life.
And they use this fantastic analogy. Being spiritual without religion is like trying to play tennis without a net. I mean, sure, you can hit the ball back and forth, but are you really playing the game? It's the structure, the rules, the boundaries. That's what gives it meaning.
Here's another great one. The SBNR mindset is like wanting all dessert and no dinner. It's grabbing all the sweet parts of spirituality. The comfort, the good feelings, but skipping the main course of commitment, discipline, and moral responsibility.
Right, so the huge takeaway here is that structure is seen as freeing, not restrictive. Think about it. An airplane designer has to understand and work with the laws of gravity, not to be trapped by them, but to actually achieve flight. In the same way, the source argues that religious rules are the very foundation that allows a person to spiritually soar.
But what about that classic objection? All the hypocrites you find in religious institutions. The source has this really powerful answer. A church is a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. It's not supposed to be a gallery of perfect people. It's a place where broken people can go to get better.
So, beyond the philosophical arguments, our source also flags what it sees as some real dangers that can come with a spirituality that's completely self-defined. These include things like spiritual narcissism, which is basically where your own feelings and experiences become the highest authority. It also points to moral relativism, the idea that there's no real objective right or wrong. And the source argues this can leave a person open to all kinds of other belief systems, some of which have some pretty ancient and complicated roots.
For instance, the source warns about a kind of modern-day Gnosticism. This was an ancient belief that was all about salvation through secret, personal, intuitive knowledge, not a public faith that's revealed to everyone. And when you think about it, the parallels to modern New Age ideas about finding the truth within are pretty striking.
And this isn't all just theory either. The source actually points to some sociological research to back this up. One study, for example, found that young people who identified as spiritual but not religious were, and this is surprising, more likely to show antisocial behaviors. They actually scored worse on these measures than not just their religious friends, but even kids who said they were neither spiritual nor religious.
So, why does any of this matter? Is this just a philosophical tug of war? Well, according to our source, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher.
Because if there is an objective spiritual truth out there, like the source argues there is, then finding our way isn't just a matter of personal taste. It becomes about finding the right destination. And that choice is framed as having, well, eternal consequences. And this whole argument is summed up beautifully in this famous line from St. Augustine. The idea is that the spiritual restlessness we all feel, the very thing that makes people search in the first place, can only really find a home in a relationship with God, inside the structure He provides.
So in the end, the source leaves us with a really big question to chew on. Is the journey itself enough? Or does the whole idea of being on a path mean that there has to be a real, true destination at the end of it? That's a powerful thought to end on.